On a Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue ruler said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him, "You hypocrites, doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" When he said this, all his opponents were humiliated, but the people were delighted with all the wonderful things he was doing. This is the gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. I don't know about you, but I grew up in the Lutheran church. Anyone else grew up? I'm thinking most of us, not all of us, but most of us. Yeah. We had to, as part of our confirmation training, memorize well, at that time I didn't know it, the 9 Commandments. If you've been around long enough, you know I've been teaching on that. But yeah, years ago, hundreds of years ago, the Catholic Church, before we broke off and protested against them, took the idol commandment and just kind of, let's just say, set it aside. And that way there's a big business in making the Virgin Mary icons and things like that. So it's worked out well, I think, financially for them. But nonetheless, we had to go and memorize Luther's explanation of them. You have to do that too? Yeah, okay. And when we came to the Sabbath, that was one of the first few that we had to memorize. And I could never understand why we never kept it. I mean, if there's 10, some of them, I guess, are more important than the others. I'm assuming. I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to go around and say, well, you know, if you murder somebody here or there, and that's so bad. Maybe once every 10 years. If you can limit murdering somebody to once every 10 years, you're good. I mean, that'd be ridiculous, right? Adultery, you know, once every 10 years, that's not a bad thing. If you can keep it down to that. You know, we don't think like that at all. Stealing. No. But when it comes to the Sabbath, not so much. And I thought about that because we were thinking about this, listening rather to the words of Isaiah. The Sabbath was a rule that constantly got Jesus in trouble. Constantly. Because in trying to keep the Sabbath, which was to restrain from work and to rest, that's what the word means, to rest, Sabbath. They created a whole litany of things that you had to observe and prepare for and do, and it became kind of laborious to try to keep the Sabbath. And even when I was growing up, the Sabbath, I thought, growing up anyway, was reduced to about an hour and a half on Sunday morning. Because after that, what does it say? You do your own thing. Right? Are you with me here on this? Am I the only one that grew up? Okay, good. I'm not the only one. I thought for a second I was the only one. No, we prayed all day, and well, my family was weird then, you know. We were watching Vikings games. But the whole point of Isaiah, which is very interesting, is that the Sabbath, you just kind of do what you want. And it's not necessarily designed or even intended to do that. And that the conflict that we have as human beings is, for the most part, we kind of want to do what we want. And I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I did not like to be told that I had to do something I didn't want to do. And that really pertained to God, too. I didn't want to have to go to church. You had to go to church. Why? Don't ask questions. Just do it. And that, I think, as I'm understanding more and more of our relationship with God as human beings, is a result of this false narrative that says any kind of commandment or any kind of instruction that God gives us, well, it's really just more of another burden that we have to carry, and it's not necessarily good for us. And to switch that idea is something we can't do on our own. It really is an act of God. I don't know about you, but the more and more I live and the more and more I run into different people and subsequently will ask how they're doing, the more and more frequent the phrase comes back, I am just so busy. Now, here we have Jesus teaching about the kingdom. If you read the story, our attention probably goes to the healing because it seldom happens in our midst. But Jesus, being in full alignment with the reality of the kingdom, is able to, from that place of restoration and healing, extend that healing to those who come to him. And so he heals her. She's been ill for a very long time. And it's easy to get focused on that and lose the first part of what he was doing, which was teaching. What do you think he was teaching on in verse 10? Just out of curiosity. They didn't have a Bible, they had Old Testament. What do you think he was teaching? No idea? Yeah, Talmud, probably. Talmud, yeah, probably that. Kingdom. I'm guessing, and I don't know because it doesn't say for sure, but I'm guessing if you go back to the first part of Luke, the first part of Mark, the first part of Matthew, the first part of John, that he's teaching on the reality of the kingdom. And he has such an insight into that kingdom and is living in such alignment with that kingdom that the truth that he shares about that kingdom, wherever people hear it and take it to heart, brings restoration that eventually manifests itself physically. I've said this for many times. It's just a matter of time for any human being, myself, yourself, whatever. It's just a matter of time before the physical catches up with the spiritual. If you are stressed, it's just in your spirit. If you are troubled in your spirit, if you are burdened in your spirit, it's just a matter of time before that stress, that burden, that anxiety, if you will, begins to manifest itself physically. Maybe you'll get an ulcer, maybe you'll get cancer, maybe you'll gain a lot of weight because you eat to bury these things. I don't know. But it's just a matter of time. So Jesus is healing, and he's healing by way of the kingdom, but he does it on a Sabbath. And see, the point, the beautiful part of this is that the Sabbath is meant for restoration. You see, the human will is designed, to completely and utterly trust and depend on God. And when that doesn't happen, conflict begins to arise in our soul. We call that stress. Is anybody familiar with it? Okay, that one we are. Doesn't feel good, does it? Feels horrible. We weren't designed to feel that. There's a reason why it feels horrible, because it tells us something's wrong. Just like when you have a toothache, it's supposed to be painful so that it tells you something's wrong so you can fix it. Or an earache, or a toe ache, whatever the ache may be. The ache in our soul is that of anxiety, of stress, of fear. David says in the last part of Psalm 139, "Search me, O God, know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." Find them where they are. And then allow them by your grace to be transformed so that I don't carry that but walk rather in complete trust in you. And when you take a look at Jesus' life, there is no anxiety, there is no stress. And when he teaches about that reality, it almost from a human perspective sounds ludicrous. Don't worry about anything, please. I worry about something every hour. You tell me not to worry about anything? Don't you see the world around us? Don't you see all the evil that we need to be afraid of? All the danger that lurks, all the manipulation, all the things that threaten us. You don't see that? And Jesus says, yeah, I see it. But if you follow me, I'll teach you a greater reality, such that if you take my yoke upon you, if you walk with me, my burden's really easy. Piece of cake. Piece of cake. And the Sabbath has a lot to do with this. One of the things that Jesus spent a lot of time doing, and I think it's the hardest thing, I'll share about this in a minute, I think it's the hardest thing for American Christians to do. That's why we're becoming less and less prevalent in the world scene. But I think it takes more energy for the average Christian in America to practice the discipline of solitude than anything else. I think it takes more energy. Dallas Willard talked about this, and I agree completely. I think it takes more energy to do the discipline of doing nothing. Can you imagine what it'd be like? We gather here on Sunday morning and just, in 20 plus years of doing ministry, I have yet to teach the word and not have people fall asleep. Because we are so exhausted. We can't even hear the word without falling asleep. It's not our fault, because we haven't been trained. Try doing absolutely nothing. And see, the nothing is what allows us to realize and just to shed our self-importance. You got to be doing something. And Jesus spent time in solitude. Just read through any of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and find how many times Jesus spent time alone. The Sabbath, all by himself with God. Realizing and learning and being awakened to over and over again the reality of the kingdom that was right among him. And from that place, was able to teach of a greater reality, an eternal reality, in which he can tell every single human being, no matter what their situation is, you are blessed if you understand your place in this reality, the kingdom. That's why he can say, blessed are you who are poor. He didn't say, blessed are you because you're poor. He said, blessed are you who are poor, because despite your circumstance, when you find your place in the kingdom, you will find a greater reality than your circumstance. See, this very, very easy as we read through this, to focus on the performance. So here's Jesus performing a miracle. In fact, we'll even say that, some of your head, if you read through the scriptures, some of it, your headings will say, Jesus performs a miracle. I understand where we're getting at. I don't like the word. He manifests a miracle. He doesn't perform. The church has become way too much performance. The other day, my neighbor came up to me again and said, we got this all-day seminar, and we got these speakers that are coming. We got a service at 2, and we got a service at 3. And one of your services, and immediately, without even thinking about it, without even praying about it, without even going to God, I just thought, no, I don't want him to come here because their performance he's going to like better than this performance, and I don't want to feel bad about feeling rejected, and it's all human stuff. But see, that's what we do. It's all about performance, you see. You're going to wear the right clothes? How's the music? What's this? It has nothing to do with understanding the greater reality of the kingdom. And when you get to the Pharisees, they're angry because Jesus isn't performing the law of the Sabbath correctly. So they're really bent out of shape because he's not performing according to how they think he should perform. And see, there's no performance in the kingdom. There's just being. There's no performance. None whatsoever. And in this reality of the kingdom, there is rest for your soul. Come to me, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest for your soul. Take my burden, or take my yoke, not burden, my yoke. Meaning a yoke is you put two animals together so they are in sync. Take my yoke, walk in sync with me, for my burden is very, very easy. And it's very light. I was talking to my cousin. He's a lawyer. I don't hold that against him. But he's a lawyer in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And he said, I can tell when I go to work if I've spent time with God at the beginning of the day or if I don't. And if I go through the day, I end up just exhausted because I just take matters into my own hands. I get frustrated with people. I want things to go a certain way. I get frustrated with the bureaucracy. And I end the day just tight. But when I start the day with God, and I'm in that place of realizing that nothing is going to come my way today that God has not already taken care of, when I do that, my day manifests the kingdom. He talks like that because he watches my videos. But we also have conversations too. Manifest the kingdom. You see, it takes more grace to go through your day as a lawyer with Jesus than it does a New Testament scholar at a seminary. It really does. It takes more grace to go through your day as a truck driver with Jesus, as a cleaner, as a mechanic, as an accountant with Jesus, than it does a liturgical studies professor. Not degrading that, I'm just saying it just simply does. And see, this new reality that Jesus makes available to all of us is that as we go through our lives, and the purpose of discipleship is to realize that we are being changed to live our lives such that it would be the same as if Jesus was living our lives in our place. What would Jesus do? Remember the brace? It's very good. But if you don't know how to answer the question, it's great to have the thing. What would Jesus do, right? Awesome. Pretty cool. But if you don't know how to answer the question, it gets pretty frustrating. I don't know. What would he do? He'd probably slap that customer across the side of the face. That's what I'd do, if I was Jesus. And that's a very, very great question. What would Jesus do? The Sabbath is meant to find and reposition our will to be in alignment with God. It's transformation. It is working with the grace of God The grace of God is what makes things grow. It's like a plant. You can't make a plant grow. Nobody can, but they can at least plant a seed, and they can water it, and they can tend to it. But they can't make it grow, but they can do those things. I can't change myself to trust in God, and I can't rearrange my will to be dependent on God and to be okay with that. But what I can do is at least begin the training process through meditation, through prayer, through solitude, through complete silence. Just forget the day, taking the day to be with God. That's it. Nobody can do that right now. It'd drive you crazy. We have been so conditioned. My mother came out a few years ago, and it was a fall day. It was raining outside. I just wanted to watch a movie, and she said, "Oh, this is a perfect day to clean the drawers." Are you serious? What? No, she got to be doing something. Got to. The whole concept of being able to just sit and do nothing is so foreign. And yet, we read that Jesus does it all the time, but we think, well, we don't have to do it. Never been trained. Have you been trained in confirmation to experience solitude? Memorize, perform, spit it out, graduate, and move on. Right? I mean, it's not said that. You can't say that. My gosh, we'd be out of a job. But it's implied. Can't wait to. What was it that they used to wear? Graduation robes. No, I'm sorry. They weren't graduation robes. They're confirmation robes. But that's what they imply. That somehow you're done with discipleship. You've got what you needed to do to get to heaven. Now, live your life the best you can and have fun. And if you screw up, there's always forgiveness. You can come on Sunday. See, this is a common idea. The other day I was watching, I don't know if you ever saw the show, Anger Management. I don't watch it. It's not that good of a show, but it was on, and I was doing something by the TV, so I was watching it. Now, if you don't know the show, Charlie Sheen is in it. And regardless of his depravity and all that he is, he's a pretty good actor in some roles. And in this role, he is an anger therapist, and his father, Martin Sheen, is in there. And Martin Sheen, Charlie's real father, as well as character father in this show, is upset because Charlie did not get his now adolescent daughter baptized. And Martin Sheen says to his son Charlie in the show, "You've got to get her baptized. What's wrong with you? Don't you care about her immortal soul? If she dies, she's going to go to hell. I got you baptized. You need to get her baptized." And so Charlie's father wants to get her to church, and she does go to church, and she loves the candles, and she loves it. And so she decides to get baptized, and they have this whole thing. And Martin Sheen, unbeknownst, Charlie comes home one afternoon and says, "Guess what? Tell him," and he leans over to his granddaughter, and his granddaughter pulls out the candle. "I got baptized," with no intention of discipleship. It's all about the candle and the insurance policy that you don't get burned. Now, for all those people that don't know anything about Christianity, that's what they think it is. Make sure you get your insurance policy so you don't burn. And it's so thoroughly ingrained in our psyche that it's really, really, really difficult to get out there, especially if you've been told from little on. The judgment, the judgment, the judgment, the judgment. You see. And so, when that permeates our mind, we really don't want much to do with God. Really don't. And why would you want to be in solitude when that's all you think that God is about, is trying to do enough so that he doesn't send you to the bad place, you see. Jesus came very clearly. The kingdom of God is here. It's a greater reality. It's far greater. And if you live in it, you will become a new creation day by day, minute by minute. You will become greater than your fears. You will eventually get to a place where you will have very few fears that come your way. You will know a peace that transcends. Paul says it this way: may the peace of God, which transcends any kind of effort on your part to figure it out, that peace, may that peace be within you. And the life that you live, you will begin to realize there is a continuity, that there is no death. In the words of the scripture, Jesus Christ has come and has destroyed death. It's not there. I've come, Jesus said, that you may have life abundant. What does that look like? It certainly doesn't look like back in the day when the prosperity gospel first started coming out. Send in your sowing, your seed money, and or a few of the posts that I get on. Please, if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, do not send me. Please pass this on for a blessing. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. If you get something in your Facebook or says, God will bless you if you just pass this on. Thank you, but it really doesn't work that way. If it did, we'd all be very, very rich. No, there's a greater reality. It's entered through faith, meaning that you trust Jesus and all of who he is. Every single thing that he says, you can trust that he's not only true, it's actually good for you. That you don't have to kick against the goads, if you will. And see, this is the message of the gospel. This is why it's called good news, because those people that could actually embrace it and understand it and were being transformed by it could not be stopped. It could not be stopped. It just empowered whoever took Jesus at his word. And this little snapshot that we read in the Gospel of Luke today, this little snapshot that's right here, is just a little inclination of what it's like. When was the last time anybody experienced that kind of manifestation in American church life? Probably not very often, mainly because we would have to prepare for it and put it in the bulletin in its appropriate spot. And if we didn't, someone probably after the service would come and correct us. You didn't put it in the right spot. You see? But when we can get beyond our limited understanding, and again, some of this stuff is going to seem, if you've ever read through the book of Acts, read through the book of Acts, and you compare it to a typical church, and it's not even close to being the same. Primarily because of lack of discipleship, But the good news is that it doesn't take much just to get back to discipleship. You just have to start doing it this week. If you have time, practice solitude. The reality is you don't have time. So you're going to have to make time. That's part of discipleship. But I guarantee if you do, and you do it just for a week, and it doesn't have to be a religious or a legalistic thing, you will experience something. You'll begin to experience the kingdom. You will. Meditation, the same thing. It happens naturally, isn't it? We live and have the opportunity to experience supernatural life. And that same availability and opportunity that we just read about with the woman is still here, because as it says in Hebrews, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. When you go into solitude, if you are this week, just be aware of how many thoughts cross your mind of what you should be doing rather than what you're doing. And that's the conditioning of our culture right now. Just be aware of it. I know it does with me all the time. I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be praying for this. Stop that. Just be with God. And now may the peace of God, which really does pass all understanding, keep your hearts and your minds in his rest, in his peace, in his joy, in his strength, in his life, in his forgiveness, in his hope, now and forever. Amen.